To begin with, I want to thank Rector Azzone, Professor Torcelli, Vice Rector Grecce, Professor Bonafante for their gracious participation in this event. This is a great honor indeed from the greatest school of architecture in Italy. Graduating such great architects as Gio Ponte, Lorenzo Piano, Aldo Rossi, the Polytechnic di Milano is certainly an institution dedicated to architecture. I believe my deep educational experiences in architecture began in Rome in 1970. I was airlifted from Seattle at 20 years old, and maybe there's no architecture in Seattle. So I came to a windowless apartment in Via Denari Se, behind the Pantheon, and with my professor, Oscar Zarina, instructing me, I visited the Pantheon every day, every morning. I had to deal with the guard, and he let me in before the tourists. So I saw the light change, and the seasons change, and the silver rain come down through the oculus and go into the marble paving below. And I think even today, I believe this curious path of light and space is still something that I continue to study as a student. In 1988, at the early, maybe premature, invitation of the Museum of Modern Art, of mostly unbuilt work, I wrote my first manifesto, Anchoring, which argues for a universal in the specific, against the trend of a personal style. It is an argument for the uniqueness of each place, each site, and each circumstance. And here's a sentence from that book. Architecture does not so much intrude on the landscape as it serves to explain it. Architecture and site should have an experiential connection, a metaphysical link, a poetic link. For each new project, it needs its own concept, an idea, the force driving the design. I have always felt that architecture could aspire to the level of thought. If we consider the order, the idea, to be the outer perception, and phenomena, the experience, to be the inner perception, then architecture is the field that brings essences back into existence. It has the possibility to bring the outer perception and intertwine it with the inner perception. In 1993, I wrote a book with Ioanni Pallasma and Alberto Perez Gomez called Questions of Perception. Instead of focusing on the individual idea and the specific, its subtitle, Phenomenology of Architecture, refers to the experiential accounts of architecture on terms for all buildings. For existence, enmeshed experience, the merging of object and field, argues how the experience of architecture in partial views is joined with foreground, middle ground, and distant views. 11 categories are in the book, which is still in print: perspectival space, color, light and shadow. All of these are about the phenomenal experience of the joy of architecture. My experiments in urban thinking are also thanks to Italy. Upon receiving an invitation to the Triennale of Milano in 1986, coordinated by Pierluigi Nicolini and Cino Zucchi for the Porta Vittoria project, I was able to develop correlational charts, the charts that began with 4 aspects of architecture: under the ground, in the ground, on the ground, and over the ground. I developed a theory of perspectival space in that invitation. Architecture of urban space should be conceived in section and perspective before plans. And I remember Cino Zucchi said to me, when he opened the delivery of the package of the models we sent from New York, he said, "We were very surprised. I knew you were good, but I didn't think you were that good." The book Urbanisms Working with Doubt was written in 2009, and it was dedicated to my Roman teacher, the passionate urbanist Oscar Zarina. The following is from the introduction. Today, working with doubt is unavoidable. The absolute is suspended by the relative and the interactive. Instead of stable systems, we must work with dynamic systems. Instead of simple and clear programs, we engage contingent and diverse programs. Instead of precision and perfection, we work with intermittent, cross-bred systems and combined methods. Suspending disbelief and adopting a global understanding is today an a priori condition. New fundamental for creative work in science, urbanism, and architecture. Working with doubt becomes an open question for concentrated intellectual work. Tomorrow, I'm traveling to London, and I'm working on a Maggie's Cancer Care Center. It's a program this one is under construction, so I'm going to the site to see the materials and the details. It's at St. Bartholomew's, the oldest hospital in the United Kingdom. And it's curious, in a way, it becomes a polemical work because Charles Jenks is the catalyst behind these, which there's a new book called The Architecture of Hope, these cancer centers where these buildings are built to give people with terminal cancer a sense of joy, a sense of light and space, a place to come. It's a very important program that's very successful and all done with famous architects, Zaha Hadid, Rem Koolhaas, etc. So I was very honored to be asked to do one of these buildings. But I remember in his iconic work in 1978, The Language of Postmodern Architecture, he argued that modern architecture falsely claims to change people's lives. But now is a complete reverse, because at the end of his career, he's doing a program which is really about how architecture can change your life and changes the life experience of these people. Thank you, Charles Jenks. I'm going to have dinner with him tomorrow night. I'll tell him I told everybody. You can throw away that book, The Language of Postmodern Architecture. I think I don't have much to say. To just finish, I would just say that today, architecture education has been downgraded by a kind of value system, money-driven society, and the value of somehow bigness, big offices, or for large practices has taken the stage. But I don't believe this will continue. I think architecture is not just a financial instrument. It is a cause dedicated to the concerns of public space and the fulfillment of uplifting of the spirit. And when realized, architecture stands as a gift to future generations. Thank you for this moment for reflection.